Good evening and welcome to this pre-Valentine presentation of poetry and music here in Winona, the arts capital of southeast Minnesota. We'd like to thank the Winona County Historical Society for partnering with us on this event, in particular Jennifer Weaver. And this activity is made possible by the voters of Minnesota through a grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board, thanks to a legislative appropriation for the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. I'd especially like to thank Betsy and Mark for their hard work on this project. It's been fun and an inspiration to me personally. And in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I will say that both of you are much loved by many here in our community. You'll notice that there's a one-page evaluation in your program, and we'd really appreciate it if you would fill that out after the program. The box to drop them is over there. There are pencils over there as well. Please remember to turn off your cell phones. And I won't mention all the other kinds of things. They're obsolete anyway. The restrooms are in that direction. If you have to leave, please do so quietly and preferably between selections. There'll be a reception following the presentation with treats. There will be books for sale over there at a discount. And Walt, you're back there. I've left out most of the explicit poems, so we'll have to do that on another occasion. For the sake of time and the flow of the program, we ask that you not applaud specific pieces, but to hold your applause until the end of the program. And thanks to all of you for being here tonight to share this event with us. This is our Valentine's gift to each and every one of you. The first poem, In Orion's Chamber, doesn't refer to my son, Orion, but to the constellation. From the Palisades at sunrise, I spot one high-voltage bullhead fingering the viscous tracks of small winged pygmies. Finches jungling, a solitary owl blinks, lifts silently into the pewter air, is escorted by viragos into the smokehouse of daylight. The leaves have abdicated their places. How is it that you, freckled and converted, curl in the down bag, sucking the oak breath into silver filaments of lungs, so delicate, lungs not your own, but ours, deep in the sweet meat of your body? How is it that I am standing too long at this gate with no myth but melancholy to take me home through the tentative envelopes of memory to such summers and summers of beauty? The next poem begins on a channel of the Iowa River in the late 60s, and then the poem goes back to Newfoundland, where I was a child in the early 50s, and then bounces back to 1920 in my father's childhood. anti-elegy for father and son. Shaggy, leaning into a calyx of light, my face consorts to move with things. Here is a rotted skiff on the crest of a hill, and a calf in a stream bed swollen, bullheads excavating its flanks. And here is the smoke hole vision of the trees on the other bank. I walk into it, letting it happen. I see a codfish drying on a rack, and butter beautiful with maggots in the easy wreckage of my youth. My lips become salty, ancient. My 2 dogs puff in their sleep like tiny bears. I am intruding, edging out through delta mist. There is zebra light in the muscadine. I smell the sawmill, but it is not there. A figure is walking ahead of me. I approach, but find no footprints in the snow. It is 1920. My forehead opens like a window to the night. Father, I am you. And I can't remember getting there or falling, but the danger is my nature. As this game becomes a game no longer, we both play to win. It is the only alternative to losing. Fate is a pale excuse for anything, but please, is there some way we might talk to each other for the first time as 2 people afraid? In 1970, I rented a farmhouse outside the Amish community of Kelowna, Iowa, and every few days I would go to visit my neighbor, Joe Miller, to get milk from him. Joe was a real character, and he walked with a pronounced limp. He stuttered, and he told interminable stories. About 14 years after this poem is set, I sat down and wrote this poem because Joe was still firmly in my mind, and I took a drive down to see him, and I said, Joe, I've written a poem about you, and I'd like to read it to you, because if you find it offensive or, in any way you're displeased with it, I'll tear it up on the spot. So I read the poem, and he kind of nodded his head, and he said, yep, Kenny, that's me all right. Joe Miller. I would walk the half-mile down the gravel road, past the pond and the draft horses, past Irv Chupp's son, chasing his sister's braids, to Joe Miller's place. He'd be in the barn. He'd hobble out to greet me like a large, raw-boned elf. He'd take my gallon jar and swoop back into the dark of the barn. He'd settle on a low stool, his gimp leg splayed out to one side, and start in milking. He'd squirt the milk directly into my jar, and every 10 beats, he'd shoot a stream at one of the gray barn cats fawning at its flanks. I might say, Joe, why do those guinea hens make that funny noise? He'd say, Kenny, I heard something. Now, it may not be true. Well, to make a long story short, and he'd launch into a wild meander on guineas and their secret idiosyncrasies. By then, we'd have moved out next to his buggy under the willow tree. The rasp of the cicadas blended with the astral whir of the guineas. The sun had slid down on the horizon. I had a beard then, wore denim clothes and a beat-up straw, So Joe and the others regarded me, I guess, as an offbeat partisan. He might snatch up a copy of the Amish paper with news from the colony in Venezuela that Toby Miller, son of Daniel, had fallen from his horse, had broken a leg, but was on the mend. Joe's job was leading horses into the ring at the local sale barn. I was there once when the auctioneer deferred to him. "Joe, what do you know about this horse?" Joe lurched to a stop, paused a second, then said, "Well, he's got wind like Freddie Schwarzenegger and goes down the road like Chrissy Ropp." The locals got their chuckle out of that, but he'd given them the goods. Joe's wife, Fanny, would appear at the back door in gray dress, wire rims, her thick ankles. With hands on hips, she'd yell out, "Joe Miller!" He'd tap me briskly on the shoulder and say, "Well, Kenny, gotta go now. See you in a few days." And swing that leg toward the house with all those cats in tow. Ron, I think I saw you back there. Where's Ron? I see Rakiba. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, this is a poem for Ron. I have a deep and abiding love for Montana, especially the mountains. This next poem is set in Montana in a bar. And at that time in my life, bars were my places of worship. Atlas Axis, the new Atlas Bar, Columbus, Montana. In the days before Interstate Cappuccino and Llama Ranch incursion, you'd stop here before winding up into westering hills through a scrim of early snow. It was your own delirium tremens in waltz time. Your conversation was not so much with the two-headed patrons or the barkeep waxing at the tap, but with yourself as you sat in buffalo coat, your cornucopia of melancholy on the bar. If you were sanguine, you'd last the night, and the old-timers would put you on the clock. If they suspected a hidden agenda, you'd disappear into thinner air. Times have changed now, but not the register. The new Atlas, holding up the hills with droll mahogany shoulders. The next poem was written after a 4-day vision quest in the backcountry of Yellowstone Park. And it's a set of instructions to my older son, Galway, who was 4 years old at the time and will be 43 on Sunday. The first line of the poem refers to the backbone. And many of the tribes in the area surrounding Yellowstone Park and the Rockies refer to the Rockies as the backbone. Instructions. Trace the backbone to where it disappears. There, gentians suck the color from the sky. You will see dancers, barely visible, stumbling through the aspen as if drunk. When you hear a crow's call rise like hunger, traveling south, turn and sit. A fine pollen will settle on your hair and shoulders. Bring no weapons. Several bears will cross you. Even if a grizzly raises up and rakes the air, hold your ground. Breathe. Speak sharply. It'll be years before you get here. The first time, be alone. If you need me, look over your shoulder 50 paces back. Call, and I will see with you through your eyes. And on this morning, this first morning, you will sense love, the skin laid out for you to put on for the rest of your life. It will be blue, not the color of mountains as the sunlight fades, or of morning, but the color of feathers and of eyes and of old ones who live beneath the snow. You will hear the rhythms of an ocean, and your body will rise in slow spirals up to the high place. From there, you will see the deep obsidian face of your past. Deny the terrors. Let the quick lightning writhe through you to set root at the center of the earth. It will turn your blood to vapor. You will smell then something like gardenias, but far beyond its wildest echoes, so clean you will weep tears of tourmaline. You will know when to come down. Follow the old road, the glad ice on the stream of light. There are no dams here. The bark on your hands will be white, my son. Your eyes, green moons. Begin running ahead of time, into time, no matter. You can dream now, forever. This poem is set in South Carolina and weaves fact and fiction. It's titled The Moment and All Such Moments. And there's an epigraph from T.S. Eliot's Little Giddy, and it's in 3 parts. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. 1. At meeting, the swirling fans were always silent. Grandma smelled of chanterelles. The beady eyes in the foxes' heads draped round her neck kept me from magic sleep. I was in my sailor suit, Hannah in banana curls with promises of gum. Always one at home with chicken pox, splotched with calamine in queasy-smelling quilts. Outside, our nervous setter pounced on Hannah after he had wallowed in the sewer. Plaster fell from the ceiling of the pantry. Masturbation, butterscotch, and chiggers were the only things I learned that season. At Sunday dinner, with Mama scrubbed and cantilevered, the tall carafe became my rosy grail. Uncle Ted, a thimble of a man, had slicked his hair with wild root. He once went through this town in style. 2. That spring, traditions grew as thick as flies. Your eyes would sooner murder than admit we could be more than kissing cousins. At dusk, a dozen waiters gathered round the pool. The bell for tea barely trembled. Your dear mother grimaced when she saw me, went back to her absinthe and French cooking. For her, I trotted out my ancestors, but still I was a yacht without a mast. Better to cast my seed in the belly of a peasant. The others all went home. You kissed my ear and poured me some Pernod. I waited for you by the striped gazebo. Indigo, you dropped your robe by the pool, your breasts frightened doves in the moonlight. You were a mirror that couldn't lie. The timbre of your whisper rushed like a trapped snake up my spine, the barrier reef. The first time I asked you, the sky mumbled. Your answers always were a form of birth. 3. That time, we both settled for second best. I swan dived from the 22nd story. You married a balding cotton broker. But now, in this life, we meet again. We have once more the chance to do it right. It wasn't I who left you, but the light inside your eyes that went away from me. Return to the house on the silent street. Stand in the arbor, smell cloves in the air. Do not be afraid of pearls and roses, the deep music of recrimination. Mathematical possibilities have little to do with it. In a crisp white blouse, you listen to the bassoon chortle through some liquid Villalobos composition. I inhale the summer gin on your breath. Why bother with this dress rehearsal, love? Venezia, in 3 parts. 1. At sunset, the gondoliers who have fathers reappear. They mix the air in stiff arabesques, make giant candelabras of their oars. Imported crocodiles swim under the bridge of sighs. I have lost my way in the blind streets with so many stairways, altars, disjointed swimmers. Two. I have come in search of you, Christina. If you would have it for just one season, we could warble on Burano near the tower, wipe out all traces of nostalgia, begin the graceful flight above our destinies. Three. It's so simple. I want to live with you. Every day I wake to fight this drowning. A poem of platonic love. Afternoon on the Broad River near Columbia, South Carolina. We canoe down the shallow river, friends too tender to be lovers. It is wild here, submerged in stillness, even though we can see the haze from the city. Hear the peacock's two-note lamentation from the zoo. As we round the bend, we surprise a blue heron resting in the shadows. as he struggles slowly into the air like a pterodactyl. He warns us with a guttural groan. I stop paddling. Watch the moss sway below the surface of the water. There's a balance here I will never touch. Rekindling an old flame. In the tall house. In the tall house lined with beads and begonias, in the blue hills sifted with doves, you offered me your love again, like you offered me the bluefish you'd caught that afternoon, done up with homegrown peppers, onions, and tomatoes, like you offered me a beer, your love. Take it, you said, again, after all these years. And your gypsy son, brooding in his workshop with his cats, saying later, will he stay the night? Which room will he sleep in? Will he be staying? The next poem brings together three things that I love dearly. The upper Midwest, winter, except this winter, and bears. The red and black. Late March, northern Wisconsin. Along Highway 51, where the Bad River wanders out of earshot, snow pelts my windshield like huge white diatoms. I make out a road sign which says bear habitat. Farther into this sea of pummeling, I sense I must get to the bottom. Then I hear them calling, slow, slow. Turn off into the birches. Park your van and leave it. I pull my hands up into my sleeves and listen. The snow will cover your tracks to our dens. They cannot follow you. And when it stops, you will have to walk backwards the way you came here. But how long a song it will be until tomorrow, and what your footprints will resemble, is another story altogether. We are waiting, brother. This poem is about a reunion of two former lovers and about marriage. Rains. After 20 years, you travel north to see me, with your teenage daughter as a chaperone. The gray in our hair becomes the both of us. You had a taste for sailing close to shore, where the lilies of eccentricity slowed you. That's where you found me, in select company. I remember long indigo afternoons, words of smoke, stars embedded in my skin, stolen lifetimes in Charleston and Manhattan. Though I knew you'd never give up everything, I waited, but didn't have the grit to ask. My outlook sank like a weighted corpse. I moved. Our letters sleepwalked back and forth. When your first child was born, I was silent for 2 years because he wasn't mine. We sit here, silent. Beyond the porch, horses loll in purple loosestrife. Your daughter and my 5-year-old son wonder palpably. The woman I love now stands at the door with tea and knows I will not turn away. Though once I would have done most anything. It's a poem in 3 parts for my younger son, Orion. Looms. One. When I spread your placenta on the kitchen counter, your umbilicus was already stiffening. I divided it, 1 part each to your 2 brothers, 1 to your mother. I keep mine in a brass canister, tough as a pumpkin stem. 2. Your voice at bedtime is like soft birds falling on the pillows. At 6, you've memorized my scent as I lie next to you and read. If it were stoppered in a vial, in 50 years, you'd recognize me instantly. And where will I be then? And where will you? 3. Go out where I can still see you just as the sun is rising. The big maples in the front yard answer the horses. Listen. They'll tell you what it's like to have your lungs fill up with bees. Now that's 1 verse. Another. You can sing and fly at the same time. This is a second part of a longer poem, and it addresses my ongoing love affair with my muse, which is sometimes glorious and sometimes dangerous. There's a reference to in the poem to Grushenka, who was the femme fatale in the Brothers Karamazov. Journal, 27 August 2000. As I enter the woods, a weight drags the center of my chest. I stand, breathing, keeping it at bay until it passes. Several times a week now, no warning and no reason. If I wait too long, this could be the last fall I walk this path. Inhale Queen Anne, taste blackberries on my tongue, the river in blue distance. Since I was 15, I've courted her, led her on, been fickle. If you betray me, I'll betray you back. Her toes were licorice, her breath like currents in a rusty pipe, her flesh the Rubicon, the Danube, and the Nile. The deepest summer of my life, but it never ended. If you add it all together, maybe 1 month out of my entire life. I always went home with Grushenka, but this time she means to have her way with me. I write a few words a day with a thick carpenter's pencil, enough to keep the yellow jacket spinning, to fill the emptiness between her visits. This is a post-angioplasty poem, and wait a minute. No, sorry, I'm out of order here. This is a poem written the night before undergoing an angioplasty. The poem starts in the voice of Carl Sandburg because at that particular time, for our bedtime reading, we were reading Sandburg's Rutabaga stories. Procedure. After the 3 wild Babylonian baboons walk off in the rain, eating bread and butter, and we snuggle, you drop off into deep sleep. I uncradle your head for my right arm and kiss you one more time. Hibernating, you clutch your spellbound sequined iguana. Nothing unusual on the farm tonight. A yearling nickers in the dark corral. Soft blue snowlight slats through the blinds and makes the plastic stars on the wall glow in the shape of your constellation. The radiators code talk in response. Tomorrow morning, I must rise early and go to the place where they will snake the passages to my heart and determine the damage I have done. I must return from this to you. I must. To watch you rise and be my son again. To live life closer to the earth and sky. To sing the stillness at the root of things. Now a post-angioplasty poem. And the title of it is Burying Ground. That's spelled B-E-R-R-Y-I-N-G. Burying Ground. In pulmonary shade, the black caps gape like 1,000,000 compound eyes. Edging through concertina prickers, I can't help myself. I fondle them with purple fingers. Blood beads swallow my tongue. Seeds pop my teeth. There's bear scat everywhere. Wasps ride my hair to a tunnel through the canes. One eye sees the ebony blastulas, the other, the golden head of my chattering son, only half oblivious. I would swallow fire for him. Three crows silent overhead. Tonight, the moon will be our apricot. My father appears in a poem. Father-son appears in a dream, excuse me. father-son. Finches announce a bone-dry morning, the carnal taste of rust, dog-tooth. Clover swatches the right-of-way, stolen love on the sandbar south of town, beyond the city dump, the sun running, second wind, slide guitar way up my brain. Driving on these small summer roads, I wish my father were sitting shotgun through hills of willow breath, and we were going nowhere. If he were alive, he'd be 95. We'd arrive at the night coast, thunder interrupting prayer, a drive-in, a full tray, the cafe yesterday. Lightning laces indigo. He passes me a heart to eat, and we sit, going nowhere. A backyard in Iowa shared with the loved one for 12 years. One season. The dear old pear tree, as Giacometti had conceived it, spindly, behind the magnolia and the house, and the little apple the rabbits crop, and the big apple in the neighbor's yard where the northward waxwings stop to dip their beaks in blossoms, and the deer in later months collect the windfall, and the grapes on the vine fermenting, and the mulberry droppings in the grass, the fuchsia ruffles of the lilac guarding the southwest passage where the stray tom rests, and the elder statesman redbud embling horizontal, all within the shadow of the giant oak, where crows sway and nuthatches scritter down the bark, the bangles on the Solomon seal, the tea roses white against the white aslant garage, under which the tame groundhog abides and grazes down the vetch. The bunnies nest in the garden enclosed. The cardinals nest in the gnarly pines. The black stump where the mushrooms grow. The ghosts of raspberries I uprooted. The fireflies, the bats, the cool bird bath which breathes above the cistern. The other bird bath where cats imbibe the sky. The mock orange and the hidden plum, the busy chickadees and juncos, tulips, crocuses, and the blowing peonies, poison ivy, and my old heart in a shallow grave. This is a haiku-like poem which was added to the previous poem and then removed to stand by itself as a kind of a portrait. Gardener, you sitting on the back steps smoking glass of lemonade as cicadas start up in the trees. Sweet breeze jumps from the ravine. Faint bouquet of plum, just as the sun sets. A dream about a broken relationship. From down the road. It happens that we leave town the same day. Her house is newly painted inside and out, an understated Wedgwood, crisp, clean, pristine, just like her mind. Then there's my rented room at the back of a place on the edge, overlooking my garden, which has not gone to seed, but to tangles and huge tuberous tomatoes, zucchini, and eggplants. This is the way they will remember us and explain what happened. A lament on the death of a past lover. Leaving. Faint on the radio, the Highland flute and fiddle tight in the throat. Your ashes scattered 200 miles to the west in South Dakota, beside the small lake. My only friends of late, the coyotes. 6 geese escort me along the road. Crows abut the fence line. Christ steps from the ditch with his bedroll scored by the wind. If I were facing grace again, I'd bolt. Terrors parked at the roadside in the fog. A red-tailed hawk lifts from a dead bur oak. I was better as a mirror than your man. If I'd known myself, I'd have never left. If I had ever stopped equivocating. A love poem set along the High Line in Montana in the town of Wolf Point, near the Res. You have fallen asleep in a black slip in our ship among maples, doves, and owls. Seeing you every morning, at night as I close my eyes, is my salvation. Making love with you, sometimes succulent, like swimming in rose petals, sometimes throwing my body against an electric fence. That one night in Wolf Point, bone tired, we made love as if our lives might end. Since then, now and then, you say, that was pretty close to Wolf Point. You were who you seemed to be, Western about the eyes, the fit of your jeans. I was still leaning toward oblivion. This is an extrapolation from a painting by Lisa Nankivell, and it kind of spreads out into the farm where we live and other places. Night holding the scent of day. Tiny nest, perfect, woven from horsehair, red, yellow, black, white. At the fence, I stroke the mare's throat latch. Chartreuse of new shoots, red of rhubarb, one gash of sunlight trapped in the foliage. Curls, ropes, tubes, darts, turns, leaps. Clouds like 2-day bruises. Looking closely, I can see the wishbone of the scene, the sacred grove in miniature at the center, the low burn which keeps the garden going. Linens left on the line all day and forgotten, sun-drenched, scents trapped in the weave of starch, of the wearers, sweat of work, the heady musk of gin and gauloise, juices, male, female, the drool of sleep on a pillowcase, trace of sweet colostrum on a blouse, magenta, red-brown, yellow, reflected on the linens, if orchid petals had taken flight and come to rest. In one corner of the garden, a fleshy jewel of light swims within its parameters and into evening as the night awakens. At the moment of change, the linens rain from a deep blue fist, which, if you enter, you will be lost. A good thing if you are prepared. The taste of slate, the movement of veils, crisp edges between your breasts, osmosis. I will listen to my wrist on your wrist. I don't know any ghost songs if we have at least one more day together. The linens remember everything. Eastern Montana, sometime between, I don't know, maybe 1885 and 1960. Until a break in the weather. It was a small hotel, but well appointed, in a town near a long abandoned gold mine. A small town, yet prosperous. A preposterous trundle bed for 4 in the living quarters. A brass spittoon and a brass bed in every room. And once in a blue moon, a brass band strode by in the street below. Sitting Bull slept in the lobby once. And earlier, Custer, shirtless, was mustered out, bewildered. Blue duck, or black duck, or some duck, holed up for a week. I came here when I was in between. The darkness in my room resembled me. The sunsets, the same. I could, or I couldn't. I read the copy of Ben-Hur and took some notes on nothing in particular. I had no real conversations except with myself. And my father showed up in a dream one afternoon. But when I left, after 11 days, the road I took led me soon to you and to our children. It was a small hotel, but well appointed. Broken Gates. We are doing that one, aren't we? Broken Gates for Orion at the winter solstice. There are 2 epigraphs at the beginning of the poem. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. Psalm 100, verse 4. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all the earth. Make a loud noise, and rejoice, and sing praise. Psalm 98, verse 4. When I came to live here, 50 years into my life, in this valley cut by the river, all I knew was wandering. But this, the driftless region, is what I breathe and drink now. Today, in bleak midwinter, the earth glazed and dreaming of the long light, my days grow short. I recall the taste of sunflower, prickly pear and chokecherry, mint, wild licorice and grape, the rank tastes of flood and choking wildfire. 1,000 years ago, the taste of water here, the honey in the trees, the flowers and the grasses, how the air tasted, the morning dew favored by the deer, fog on the skin, a black cap bursting on the tongue, the flesh of goat, of deer, of bear, and elk, when we were still on speaking terms with the crow, the rattler, and the coyote. Bones of our horses and dogs are buried here. We shovel the droppings from the barn and mix it with compost from our table. It takes our time, our blood, and feeds us. I know the taste of okra from the garden, sweet corn, tomatoes, and arugula, Brussels sprouts and blue Italian beans, and these stunted carrots, the soil not right, pale orange gnomes from Peer Gynt's wildest nightmares. I know apples, rhubarb, pears, and little plums. Today, I bless the fences fallen into disrepair. Bless the rainwater in the cistern. Bless the long throat of the well, 500 feet. Bless these twisted implements turned to rust, old Irv's sweat transmuted into apples. Bless the flicker, nuthatch, and the chickadee. And bless you, and you, and you tonight. And most of all, bless you, my son. Do not subdue, and do not have dominion. You are husband to this land and steward. Enter these broken gates with thanksgiving. We have brought you the old songs tonight. If your friends and you would listen, sing most of them the same way. Come up with new tunes for the others. Just keep them breathing. In autumn, when flocks are passing overhead, take the river and greet them with a joyful noise. The next poem is about agape, the unconditional love for our fellow beings, human as well as otherwise. Instructions. Invite them in, these travelers, some with scars across their faces, others no more visible than blue smoke. Whether their light flickers or is so strong you must turn away. Wash this one's feet. Give that one what you have, even if it's everything. The days of love, the seconds, are not numbered. What goes from you comes back sevenfold. If you have to, run across the surface of the water, but for God's sake, be quick about it. When you're up to it, engage death in small talk about the weather, anything. Then see if you can trick him into turning inside out. The last piece, which we will do tonight, is titled Responses to Rilke. The German poet Rilke is regarded by many as the most significant poet in the 20th century. Tom, do you agree? Responses to Rilke. 1. The work. You must take up your cross to walk the earth, not sink beneath its surface. 2. I hear you sing that song, and I am trapped inside your voice like a bird flown in at the window of a station house. 3. Summer afternoon from a train, I spot Eurydice, indistinct in a fallow cornfield. 4. The 80 window spaces of a farmhouse, broken for both our generations. 5. An orange, blue with mold. 6. The early self-portraits were of the eyes, rooting behind them. Then, later, as he turned, it might be the flat triangle at the base of a woman's spine, or a cropped hump of marsh grass in the beach light of morning. 7. The stars crank around on a warped windmill. The husks of evening catch slowly in my throat. 8. I step into the water and swim easily toward my death, with your arms around my shoulders. Should we do an encore? You ready? This is titled Bob's Sweat, and it takes place on the North Fork of the Flathead River in northwest Montana. And it involves a sweat in a sweat lodge. And what else? There's another person named Orion, who is not my son Orion, but the son of my best friend, and so we refer to him as Orion Sr., and my Orion is Orion Jr. Bob's Sweat. It rained straight through that August. In my windowless office, it didn't. Old flames burned through the damp, and I headed north because I did. I got one lake short of the border. It was raining there, everywhere. Vines had braided the frame of Bob's lodge. I slept up in the Norwegian shed. Bob worked to burn in that rain and came home every day to Inez and the kids, black as a coal miner. It rained. I walked the rivers and the downfall, thinking of my own. And one night, in the rain, he popped up his bright blue poly ice fishing shack with a hole in the floor, shoveled hot rocks in, and said, "Let's get to it." By then, the wind was woofing and the lodge poles lashed each other. We sang over the din, old songs. Then whap, 3 lodge poles fell on the sagging roof, and he said, "Now we're really cooking." Hoppy, the 3-legged husky, scratched to get in. We let him poke his nose through the flap, but he only sneezed at the sage and backed away. Hardy har har. Orion, animated as a doodlebug, shimmied bare ass through the flap with teeth clacking from the cold. Out for a breather in the gale. Clear the nostrils. Shiver back in. Again, again, again. What it meant, what it means, both silent and aloud, can't be drowned or burned or walked away from. One night in the rain, a drum from somewhere. Thank you.
Betsy Neal. Mark McGuire. What's that? Bob Stuber. He's back there in the shadows.
We really appreciate your being here tonight and sharing this with us. It's been wonderful for the 3 of us to work together, and we hope to do this again some other time. Thank you.